and welcome to today's webinar. This is our third and final session of our Gen AI series, our guide to teaching for an AI future. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Paul Cotter. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at Stukent, and I'm thrilled to be hosting this event. This is our first webinar of the year, so welcome. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Now, before we dive in, let's get familiar with the chat feature. It's on the right-hand side of your screen, and go ahead, use it. Tell us where you're watching from today. Tell us which school you're at. We would love to hear from you. Also, throughout today's event, you can enter questions in the chat at any time. And sometimes it works out that it weaves into the discussion and they can answer the question in the moment. But if not, don't worry about it. We're tracking and logging all of those questions, and we will do a live Q&A at the end, and that will address them there. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Debbie from Nebraska, Marcella from Texas A&M in College Station. Thank you so much for joining us. Diane from sunny Florida. Oh man, I wish we had the sun today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very, very happy to have you all here today. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to make you aware of some of our upcoming webinars that are very applicable to you. Next month, we're going to launch a new AI series. It's a series with Dr. A.J. Cootie and Dr. Kristen Cootie, and it's titled The Educator's AI Toolkit. It's a two-part series on teaching and assessing AI conversations. So be sure to click on the link that's on your screen right now, and you can go ahead and register for that, or you can do that at any time. Now, if you've missed the first two parts of this series, don't worry. You can also check and watch any of our past recordings in our events library. Now, I want to remind you that everyone who is watching this today, we are offering you as a special gift free instructor access to our micro module on AI in marketing. And we are also offering, for the very first time, free instructor access to our brand new GenAI Essentials courseware. This courseware is authored by today's speaker, Christina Kalberg. And like I said, today is the very first day that we're offering instructor access to that. So we're very excited to share that. Go ahead and click right now, and you can just enter in your name and your email address, and we'll get with you on getting access to that. This GenAI course was designed to give your students a competitive edge in an AI-powered workplace. It blends ethical considerations with hands-on skills like prompt engineering, bot training, and AI integration workflows. The result is true job-ready AI fluency. So, like I said, click that link right now, and we'll get you that free instructor access to the courseware. We are creating a simulation for this. The simulation is still in development. It's scheduled to be ready to use in the classroom this fall. Now, I want to get started into the presentation. So I'm going to invite Christina Kalberg to join me on stage. Christina is an associate professor of marketing at Point Loma Nazarene University, where she teaches principles of marketing, consumer marketing, digital marketing essentials, and content marketing. She is the author, like I said, of Stukent's AI in Marketing micromodule and our brand new GenAI Essentials courseware. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you, Paul, so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm in sunny San Diego, so I'm going to be trying to send some sun out to everybody freezing who's on with us today. But thank you for joining us this Friday. I have the pleasure of introducing a genius, absolute genius mind in this AI field, who's also become one of my dear friends. So I'd like to also invite my co-presenter onto stage today, Mr. France Wong. And let me go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to just dive in because we have a lot to share with you today. I will go ahead and also introduce France in just 1 second, but real quick, before we dive in, and let me get rid of this and this. Okay. Before we dive in, I just want to give you a statistic that just came out. I'm going to share with you two really important stats today that I hope you jot down, because I think it will kind of help wrap this whole conversation up today. The future of work, according to SHRM, which stands for the Society for Human Resources Management, they just published their 2025 report from the research that they've done nationally on what employers are looking for in 2026. And here's what they said about the future of work. We, regardless of discipline and regardless of the level of position, whether entry level, mid-level, or executive level, we are now required to do 25 to 30% more work. Interestingly, that is actually expected to increase over the next several years to do 50% more work than what we've ever been expected to do. That is the future of work, because the power of GenAI, which is why we want to talk to you about it today. So France is incredible. I'm going to share a little personal story, and then I'm going to give the floor to him, and he's going to talk to you about AI readiness and what that means. But I was just a lowly educator, really just trying to wrap my head around this about 2 years ago. And one of the things I wanted to do in my content marketing class was I wanted my students to create custom GPTs, but I didn't want them to do it in ChatGPT, because I knew that my students did not have the skill set to create responsible, kind of feeling that if I let them into the chat space, they were just going to create GPTs that were not going to be of value, and they were going to train the system in a way that would be unethical and irresponsible. So I had an idea, and a colleague of mine said, you should talk to France, the CEO of Boodlebox. Have you heard of Boodlebox? And I said, I haven't. And they said, well, you should reach out to him. I thought, well, how am I going to be able to talk to the CEO? There's no way he's going to take my call. Guess what? He took my call. I shared in 5 minutes the vision for my class, and France said, Boodlebox and I have the solution for you. We put it together. It was beta tested at the time. I launched it in my class, and my students ate it up. And then the best thing about it wasn't just teaching them the skill set. My students actually use that to get jobs post-graduation. So I have, France is near and dear to my heart. He helped me solve a really important problem for not just myself, but my students. In addition, one of the reasons why we have grown to have such a close relationship is because he also understands higher education, because he's a distinguished visiting lecturer at the United States Military Academy at West Point. So he's us. He's one of us, and he's built Boodlebox in such a way for higher education. But what he's really going to talk to you about today is his concept of AI readiness, and this is actually his contribution to one of our chapters in the GenAI Essentials textbook, which I'm going to preview at the very end. And then after France gives his amazing insight into what AI readiness means for the future of work, I'll talk to you about AI literacy and give you a preview. All right, France, the floor is yours.
Christina, you are too kind. The feeling is mutual. I talk about you all the time. In fact, I'm going to talk to you about you even more at the end of my little few comments here. I think one of the things that struck me, Christina, immediately is not only are you an educator, but you came from industry, and you understand the future of work because you worked in industry, right? And so, like myself, you have a love of both education and of work itself, and how do we prepare students for the future? And obviously, that's changing quickly. There are 60 million knowledge workers in the United States. There's 18 million students. There's a million and a half of us faculty working across 4,000 educational institutions. And this is a time of change. Let me just throw some stats, because we're all data-driven individuals. Digital Education Council put out a stat. They did a survey. 92% of students are using AI for academics. That's probably because 88% of students weren't telling the truth on that survey, but it's a high percentage, right? 89% of colleges are working on AI-related strategies, probably higher now. That came from EDUCAUSE. This is interesting. Microsoft and LinkedIn did a survey 2 years ago. So this is outdated data of 30,000 global employers. 66%, 2/3 of employers stated they would not hire an employee without AI skills. And in fact, of those, 75% said they would hire a less experienced employee with AI skills over an employee that was more experienced, more senior, that did not have AI skills. And this is really interesting. This came from a Grammarly study. 50% of students say AI skills are the most important set of skills they will gain out of college. And so, we are obviously in an era where work is changing quick, and it's having a dramatic effect. There was some information put out from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. This most recent graduating class, their rate of unemployment is increasing faster than any other group. In other words, if you did not have a college degree, your rate of unemployment was slower than if you had a college degree, which is shocking and surprising, right? And should be troubling to us because it's going to cause people to question, what is the value of college, right? What is the value of education? There was a study done of Indeed posts. The Indeed posts that had a mention of AI had salaries that are 28% higher on average, roughly $18,000 a year. So clearly AI readiness, right? And this issue of AI is having an impact on the job market, but it's also having an impact on what employers are looking for. And so one of the questions I often get asked is, well, what is the purpose of education? What should we be doing? And as an educator, I have many, many views on the many things that educators like us need to do, but clearly one of them is preparing students for this AI-enabled future, this AI-enabled workplace. And so I think that one of the goals education should have is AI readiness. And so let's talk about what that means. So next slide, please, Christina. Okay, but let's go ahead and go into the next slide. So there are 3 components of AI readiness. So domain expertise is the first one I want to talk about. So what is domain expertise? I like to say we are all now a B- at everything because of AI. I could ask Christina to write a podcast in Swahili about refrigerator repair, and she'd come back to me in 3 minutes and have it done. Now, she can do it, but is it any good, right? Unless Christina is already an expert in podcasts or Swahili or refrigerator repair, she won't be able to judge how well the AI did. Because as we all know, large language models hallucinate. They have errors, right? The context is important. So we're all a B-, but we're not an A. So the new standard in this world is an A. B- is what can be produced by AI. So AI is most useful, perhaps arguably only useful, if you already have the domain expertise. And here's the good news. You can't get that domain expertise by only using AI. The only place you can get it is in our classrooms, is in our institutions, right? It is at the hands, right, and through the tutelage of somebody who themselves has domain expertise, one through hard experience, through academic training, and with a love for teaching and learning. And so one of the questions I sometimes get is AI going to replace, education and teachers? Absolutely not, right? And for a number of reasons, but first and foremost, you can't get the domain expertise unless you're talking to somebody who has domain expertise. And so I'll give you another example. So I'm a lawyer, among other things, and I'm a partner in a law firm. And if somebody creates a partner level AI, it doesn't all of a sudden make us all partner level lawyers in law firms, right? Because the AI is going to hallucinate. It's going to have problems. Now, if you are a partner in a law firm, the AI is incredibly valuable. Now I can spot all the problems with the AI. I can take the B- work of that AI and turn it into an A, and that allows me to be faster and more efficient and more effective. And there was that famous BCG study that showed that teams with AI were, I think, like 40% more efficient and 25% faster, and outperformed teams that didn't integrate AI. So domain expertise is critically important to be AI ready. And you can do that by teaching with AI. Okay, next slide, please. The second component of being AI ready is what I call able AI enablement. That is knowing when and how to use AI responsibly. I'm a founder of an AI company, and I forget to use AI all the time. Like, I actually have a sticky note on my monitor that says, "Have you tried AI?" I just don't have the muscle memory for it, right? I grew up in an era of Microsoft Office products and Google, and my way of thinking is to use AI as a tool and to have a specific purpose for it. And what's absolutely fascinating is every day there are new potential use cases of AI, and there are new ways to use AI. And so I have to develop this new skill of being able to identify those use cases and then develop those skill set to take advantage of those use cases, right? And that's being AI enabled. We all have to develop that. I think key to that is the understanding that AI is more than just a tool. In fact, it's probably not that great of a tool by itself, that you really need to combine it with your domain expertise. And so you want to really use it as a thought partner, right? Tool versus thought partner. Again, the kind of ways that a student would use AI is based on their limited experience. It takes a domain expert, it takes a professor, it takes an educator like everyone who's attending the Zoom to be able to see the full power of where AI can be applied and how to use it responsibly and collaboratively. And so again, to be able to be truly AI enabled, you need someone to show you the way, right? And so at my company, at BuddhaBox, we're very fortunate. We're working with over 100 institutions, hundreds of professors, tens of thousands of students. It may seem that students are using AI more than educators, and that may be true in just kind of the gross numeric sense. But here's one thing we see very quickly. When educators adopt AI, their facility, right, their expertise, their competence of AI quickly outstrips their students. Like maybe the students start faster, but the educator goes farther. And that's because the educator has experience, right? They have the domain expertise. They have the real life experience. They understand all the potential use cases and also the potential pitfalls. And where's that jagged edge of what should we cognitively offload to AI versus what we shouldn't? And so AI enablement is the second prong of being AI ready. Okay, next slide, please. Then third prong, and this may sound funny coming from a founder of an AI company, but I would argue that in an era where we can outsource so much and offload so much to AI, the things that make us uniquely human are actually more, not less important. Creativity, communication, collaboration, critical thinking. Those things that AI can't do are things that are critical for us to develop in ourselves, in our students, because they allow us to use AI to its full potential, right? Which is really to help us reach our full potential. There's a term that sometimes some people are starting to use, AI first organizations. I personally despise that term. I don't think any organization should be AI first. I think every organization should be human first. However, by adopting AI in responsible, collaborative ways, that enables us to be the best versions of ourselves. And here's how. For those of us who sit in front of a screen and do a lot of work, probably 80% of what we do is drudgery and 20% is like really high value judgment and creative thinking. And you get to kind of like really exercise and add a lot of value. What if we could flip that, right? What if 20% of your time was on the drudgery and 80% of your time was on that really high value, creative, critical thinking work? Well, AI enables that, right? It enables us to flip the script and to spend more time in those things that are uniquely human, including, by the way, connecting with other humans. And so I think the future of work, and hence the future of learning, is human AI collaboration, finding ways for humans and AI to work best together, both in a one-on-one relationship, me working with an AI system, but also in a many-to-many relationship, groups of people and groups of AI collaborating. And again, that's brand new. That didn't exist. You're going to be creating those types of learning experiences in your classrooms. And let me give you an example of that. And the example I'm going to give is my dear friend here, Christina, and what she's doing in her class. So she was talking about this marketing class. And what she does is she gives the typical lecture, right? Because she wants her students to be domain expertise. But then the students are required to take their class notes and build their own marketing assistant. And so now she's not only giving them domain expertise, they are becoming AI enabled. They're learning not just with AI, but about AI. And then the assessments that she created are not typical tests and papers. They're real world case studies and assignments where they have to collaborate with that marketing assistant to solve real world problems, and not just individually, but as a group. And so now they're being more excellent human beings, and they're learning critical thinking, and they're learning to collaborate in human AI teams. And so she is epitomizing AI readiness. She's creating students who are domain experts, who are AI enabled, who are going to be more excellent human beings. They're learning about marketing, they're learning how to and when to use AI responsibly, and they're learning to operate in human AI teams. So next slide. I think this might be back over to you, Christina.
It is. That was incredible. Thanks, France. Okay, so the reason why I'm so motivated to do this AI readiness and why I've partnered with France along with educators across the country to bring this to my students here at Point Loma is because I knew and recognized that it was going to be a skill needed in the future of work. And let me just share with you this. So SHRM, the Society for Human Resources Management, I referenced this at the beginning. For those of you that joined us a little late, I just want to reference it again. They had their 2025 report that they just published in December to tell us what were the top skills that employers are looking for in 2026. Interestingly, for the first time in decades, communication is always the number one skill employers are looking for, year in and year out. It is now number 2, below AI literacy. AI literacy for the first time ever has been reported as the top soft and technical skill employers are searching for in 2026, regardless of discipline. So not just mind and marketing, management, computer science, nursing, education, regardless of the discipline, it is now the number one skill set to be learned. And so one of the things I want you to remember as you take away from this webinar is that AI literacy, AI readiness is an actual skill. It's not just knowledge. We're not just teaching them about AI, but we're teaching them how to use the tools as a skill to both augment and automate work tasks responsibly and ethically. And this is what we provide in the courseware for GenAI. So this is, let's just dive in and talk about what this looks like. So in terms of AI readiness and developing the skill set of AI literacy, there's 2 major capabilities. The first is, how do we use any AI technology to augment existing tasks, which really just means to make the human better. So when you think of augmentation, that's what I want you to think of. And this matters, these 2 major capabilities matter because every company across the globe right now is trying to figure this out. They are trying to figure out, how do we leverage this technology and the power that it has to both augment and automate specific tasks, not every task. I totally agree with France. There are businesses, unless you're Amazon and you're trying to automate your supply chain, right? The lion's share of businesses are not trying to replace humans with AI. They're simply trying to leverage the technology to do more, okay? And the first step of that is what tasks can be augmented, right, to make the human better. And I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like in just a minute. And then, of course, the second major capability is to actually automate, right, to make something an automatic operation. Real quick here, just to simplify this, the best example we have is using Gemini to take your meeting notes. Who wants to take meeting notes anymore in their life? I sure don't. Right? And let's be real, I'm a human. If I'm sitting in an hour-long meeting and I'm taking notes, but I'm also presenting and I'm also engaging in the conversation, I'm likely to miss something, right? I don't know about you. It's happened to me. And so I'm likely to underperform from that meeting because my boss may have given me 3 specific takeaways that I needed to do. And maybe just because the human-to-human interaction and my limited capacity, I only got 2 of those 3. Well, what we know is that if we use Gemini to automate those meeting notes, it'll capture all 3 for me. And I can go back to those meeting notes and I can look at it and go, oh, that's right. I do remember my boss saying that. Now I'm actually going to outperform, right? Because I use this technology, I leveraged it in a responsible way to automate a task that I particularly don't enjoy. And it's also going to help me to perform better. Okay. So these are the 2 major capabilities of the technology. And this is what we want to teach our students And we do this through the theory of task technology fit. So we have a few theoretical implications of how students should be thinking through the responsible and ethical use of this technology. I'm only presenting to you one that is in the courseware. If you decide to sign up for the free instructor access today, you're going to see the rest of those theoretical foundations. But this is the first. And so when we think about augmenting and automating tasks, first, what we have to think through is the task at hand. Does this task fit the technology? That's the question we want our students to ask themselves. If they're going to be AI ready, we know that AI is not to be used for every task. So we have to get them to think through for each task within the job that they're trying to complete. Do the task characteristics and the technology characteristics align? If it does, then that says there is task technology fit, which means we know that our performance will be positively impacted. Now, if the task does not fit the technology characteristics, as France mentioned, the hallucinations, biased information, improper data because the platform was trained on data that doesn't fit with your field and your task, then that's not a fit. And what we know is that if you use the technology to complete that task, especially if you don't have that domain expertise, you're actually going to underperform. Your performance is going to suffer. Okay. So we want to look at augmentation automation through this theory, along with a few others that you'll find in the courseware. And when we do it, we can very quickly apply the theory to an actual task. So here what I have is an example of a graphic designer creating a new logo for a new client. Okay. So what I do is I walk my students through, this is essentially part of chapter 2 and it bleeds into chapter 3 in the courseware. And what I do is I have my students create a workflow to complete that task. And when they complete the workflow, what we can do is we can go through and we can say what part of the workflow can be augmented using the technology, what part of the workflow can be automated using the technology, and what part of the workflow should not have the technology, right? Because we're trying to do this task technology fit. So here I'm keeping this very simple, very high level. But this is one of the scenarios and one of the examples that we provide in the course. So here, what we have is the first step to design your logos. You need to understand what the client's expectations are, right? So very quickly, what we can see is the technology is not a fit for that human-to-human connection, right? However, it could maybe map out how long it's going to take you to complete the logo design. That would be a good use of augmenting the technology for that particular task. We also know that especially new graphic designers starting out with not a whole lot of experience, they need to research what are some of the current design trends, what's out there, because we don't want to reproduce that. We want a logo that is unique and original to the client. So the technology can augment the research process by giving some examples of design trends, but it's not going to create the design. So that goes into the conceptualization. It can help us brainstorm some visual approaches, but the actual core creative concept has to be done by the human. Why? Because a logo, we want it to be copyrighted, and you cannot right now copyright any design that comes out of a machine, not in the United States, and certainly not in any other country, at least right now. That might change. But as of right now, you cannot copyright any kind of design that comes from a machine. So if a business wants to copyright their logo, like Boodlebox, Stukent, etc., they're going to want that to be originated by a human because we can copyright that. And so essentially, when I bring my students through this particular chapter and this particular example, as I prepare them for the future of work in this AI lens, I can very easily get them to understand what tasks related to your field can you use the technology to augment, what can you use it to automate, and then what's the true purpose of implementing that technology in your particular field. And so this is an example of how simply my students are able to explain, because they've gone through critically thinking, they're able to explain what this looks like. Now, this is what employers are looking for. Employers want our students, when they graduate, to come into the business, and they want them to be able to do exactly what is on this slide. They want our students to walk in entry-level positions and say, for this role, here are some thoughts and how we can leverage the technology to augment, to make the humans better. Here's some ways we can automate so that the humans can do more of what we want to do, that higher order thinking, that more strategic thinking, to create that competitive advantage in the marketplace and win. And here's how we really should implement the technology. And here's when we don't use it. Right? That's what we're trying to get through. So that leads me to the courseware. Let me kind of introduce, and then we're going to have some time to take your questions. I want to show you, this is what the courseware looks like in Stukent as it is right now. So what you'll have access to if you go through and click on that QR code is you're going to have access to 9 chapters. And in each chapter, we have the text, we have an assignment, a quiz, a lesson plan, and then, of course, both the student and instructor resources. Now, what we've done in this courseware that might be a little different from other courseware that you're using, I use 2 different courseware for my marketing courses through Stukent. But what we've done here is within the instructor resources and the slides, we've given you several different discussion questions that dive deeper into these topics so you can have really robust conversation and really get your students to be thinking through, how am I going to be ready for this future of work that's expected now, right? And so we have 9 chapters. As you can see, we give a high-level overview in chapter 1. What I just walked you through is in chapter 2. There are other theories. I'll just kind of quickly touch on them real quick. We have cognitive load theory in here as well. We also have this one, which my students love. I walk them through the technological, organizational, and environmental framework as it relates to self-regulating the use of AI, right? So I don't want to just open up my Boodlebox account. Just like France said, right? He doesn't use it as much as what people think it's being used. Right now, what we know is that if you want to enhance your performance leveraging the technology, you're using it to complete anywhere between about 20 to 30% of your current tasks. That's it. We call it the 70-30 rule. 70% should be human-led, while only 30% or less should be AI led. And so walk them through kind of these, what are the technology factors related to my role and discipline? What are the organizational factors, like, can I use AI? There are businesses out there that have very strict AI policy use there. They don't want AI to be used for every task, right? Because it would actually enhance their liability and risk. It's not something that they want to do. So can I even use it? And if I can, where do I use it? And then, of course, the environmental issues. That's a real hot topic. I wish we had more time to talk about it, right? But the environmental impact of these tools is significant. One of the reasons I'm a big advocate for Boodlebox is it has one of the least environmental impacts comparatively to ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, all of that. So there's all these things that they need to think about before even opening up their account, right? So you can see chapter 2 is just chock full of all this really good theoretical foundational knowledge that our students are going to be thinking through, working through, processing through. That's then going to take them to the other information included. Chapter 3 is all about the ethical, legal, and policy considerations that are in place right now. We know this is changing very rapidly. This courseware is going to be updated regularly because it has to. And then prompt engineering, types of GenAI systems, how to apply it. France couldn't have been more correct. There's use cases popping up all over. So this is not an exhaustive list, but it does get students started. And we do go over a variety of disciplines. So this courseware can be used in the School of Education and nursing and computer science, in business, a variety of different places, PR, all of that is in here. We do get into AI or agentic AI. We get into that and what chatbots are and custom GPTs, bot building. And then, of course, France, our speaker today, he contributed into chapter 9. We will be launching with 13 full chapters for the fall of 26. We also have the simulation. This is what it looks like right now. If you were to do this, there's the introduction. We have 3 rounds that are live right now for the spring. We will have 9 rounds that will be live for fall of 26. And that is our time for today. So we'll open it up to questions. I'm sure you have a lot.
Yes, we actually have some that have already come through. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I'll read those to you guys, but anyone out there, go ahead and enter your questions that you have in the chat and we'll get to those next. So first of all, and if I don't say, just France, Christina, whoever wants to answer it, just go right ahead. The first one is, what are your recommendations for how to be more confident teaching AI in the classroom?
Ooh,
France, you start.
my answer is don't feel like you need to be. I enjoy being in front of a class of 100 students and being the sage on the stage and lecturing and being the expert. Don't feel like you need to have 100% confidence about AI to introduce it, to teach about it. We work with, like I mentioned, hundreds of professors, and those that have had the most success with AI in the classroom are very open. Hey class, I'm going to be using AI. I'm going to be asking you to use AI. This is an experiment. Some of the things I'm going to do are not going to work. We're going to talk about those things. I expect some of the things you're going to do are not going to work. That's okay. We're going to learn on this journey together, and give yourself permission to make mistakes and give your students permission to make mistakes, but create a learning environment, because that's where we're in right now. 1,000 flowers are blooming. I even had a professor tell me day one of class, they gave their syllabus to their students and says, let's rewrite this together to prepare you for an AI ready world. What do you think this should look like? Christina, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say, I knew when I started this 4 years ago now, I knew I wasn't an expert. And honestly, okay, here's a fun fact. I'm not a techie person. I know I'm in this world now, but I'm truly not a techie person. I don't think anyone in my life would say she's real tech savvy. And so I went into this seriously apprehensive. But what I realized is if I just level the playing field and I'm honest and transparent with my students, and I just say, listen, we're in this together. We got to spend the next 8 weeks together, 16 weeks together, whatever. I'm going to show up and give you my best. You show up and give me your best. And I think we're going to figure this out by the time we finish it. We're not going to have everything figured out, but we're going to be way farther along than what we were. And I think the other key to success is keeping this low stakes for yourself and for the students. So when we do this, my assessments, my assignments are low stakes grading. I make other parts of my class outside of AI much more substantial in terms of the grading than I do this part, because I'm in it with them and I want them to try. And what I have found, as well as I've been doing research across the country with various educators who are on here, I saw a few of you in various states, and we kind of do the same thing where we make the grading minimal, sort of just like participation grading. And what we have found is that if we keep it low stakes, our students are much more engaged and they really come and meet us and teach us and teach each other. And it's a much more rich learning environment than if I make this a high expectation.
Those are great answers. Thanks for sharing that. This is a good question right here. If AI can perform foundational tasks like basic coding or introductory writing, should we still teach those skills?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes. I'm a writer. So when this came on, I was like, no. And I have to tell you, I use this all the time, and it's not really that good at writing, especially writing for a business. It's generic, it's vague, it often writes the same way. Depending on the platform, yes, you can use different ones and you will get a different setting variation. But at the end of the day, like France said, I actually think its writing is very average, very C. So what I teach my students is now how to do human AI collaborative writing. And this is where I can go from average writing to more of that high level writing by infusing the human experience, by infusing the adversity that I've overcome, by infusing all of that humanness into it. And I'll just tell you real quick, because this is my field. In content marketing, we've been researching and actually collecting data on whether human writing performs better or worse than AI writing. And every single quarter, every single report globally, human writing still outperforms by over 100% anything AI writing. So there is a loads of data and research to suggest that, just like what France said, there still needs to be a development of the skill, not a reliance on the technology to complete the skill, and make it more of a collaborative effort than one or the other.
Yeah, Christina went where I was going to go, the human connection part and the humanness part. So let me add to that with the technical piece. So I remember being a cadet at West Point. They gave us MathCAD, right? This wonderful piece of software, but we weren't allowed to use functions in MathCAD till we could manually do the same function. In other words, before I could use a differential equation function in MathCAD, I had to understand differential equations. And then once I mastered that, or at least was familiar with it, I was able to use the MathCAD function, because there's no point in me doing the drudgery of a differential equation by hand over and over again. They wanted me to scaffold and do higher level math functions. However, if something went wrong with my use of MathCAD, because I could do it myself, I could peek inside the box and be like, wait a second, that answer is wrong, or it's not working right. Why? I didn't just throw up my hands and said, well, MathCAD gave me the wrong answer, right? And so if I didn't understand what was going on inside the box myself, that would be over-reliance in the box. So I think it's important to build those foundational skills, but then be open to collaborating with AI to offload cognitively some of that work in an appropriate way, so we can spend more time on higher value or high value activities.
That's great. Thank you. This next question is kind of two parts. It's asked, in an age of predictive text, how do we help students find and value their own unique human voice? And the second part is, does authenticity still matter in a professional world that may prioritize AI efficiency?
Okay, I want to start because I have a lot to say, France.
Yeah, go.
I promise I'll
You
get
go,
there.
Christine.
I'm going to do that second part real quick. So at our university, we do market research. Every single year, we go out to local employers, regional employers, and national employers related to our School of Business and all the different disciplines. And we find out, what are they looking for? What are employers saying that we need to better prepare our students for in terms of internship interviews and job interviews? And this year is very interesting. The number one complaint that employers have is that when, especially entry level, so our students, when they're in an interview, if they're asked a question about their lived human experience, they can't answer it without going to ChatGPT first. In addition, when they're asked a question about a job-related task, they immediately look for their phone and often will ask in the interview, wait a minute, can I just look up something real quick? They're not actually able to articulate, not everybody, so I don't want to broad brush, but that was the number one complaint that employers have, is that students are over-reliant on the technology, and they are not leading with their human. And so those ones are being weeded out. So in my class, when I teach this course material, I say, listen, the market's going to correct you. If you want to over rely on this technology, that's fine. You're not going to get a job or move up. Yeah. And so what I'm doing now, which I love, it's so amazing. I feel like our humanness is even greater of a superpower today than ever before. Here's what's happening. People all over the world are looking for mistakes, looking for us to be flawed, looking for imperfections. So if your students focus too much on trying to be perfect, they're going to be viewed as over relying on this technology. However, if they collaborate their humanness with the technology and they bring both to the forefront and they let a little bit of their flaws and their imperfections come out, like not being perfect when they answer questions in a job interview, they're actually going to be perceived as more authentic. They're going to be trusted more. And those are the ones that are getting hired today. So I'm actually telling my students, your humanness matters more than it ever has. And I think we're going to continue to see that. So although I'm authoring this, the reason why we're bringing this is we're trying to give you the foundational knowledge that you need to propel your students to be as AI ready as possible, but not to eliminate any of our humanity.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is a really, really old quote. It's from Plutarch, and he says, "The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be lit." And so as educators, we should ask, what are we testing on? Are we testing on whether their vessel is filled or their fire is lit? And our assessments are going to drive what the students do. If it's just about filling the vessel, they're going to use AI tools and, give us the AI generated essay or the AI generated quiz answers. And of course, it's a transaction at that point. They're trading work for a grade. But if what we're assessing is whether the fire is lit, the process by which they create something, their judgment, their decision-making, their ability to human collaborate, that's what they're going to gravitate toward, and that's what they're going to do. And then they're going to find their own voice. So we can enable it in the way we design our courses, in the way we design our assignments, in the way we design our assessments. I'll give you a quick example. If I gave you 100 pages to read on the Yalta conference and ask you to write an essay, you're going to summarize the reading with AI, and you're going to write the essay with AI. No fire is going to be lit, and very little of the vessel is going to be filled. If instead I put you in an AI simulation of Yalta, and you had to take on the role of Churchill or Stalin or Roosevelt and had to make decisions and then get feedback on that, and then talk about those decisions in a group setting in class and what you learn from it, and assess your decision-making and your ability to communicate those decisions, which one is more likely to result in you finding your voice? Which one is more likely to you having your fire lit? And so it's on us as educators to create those learning environments and learning experiences that light the fire in our students and help them find their voice.
Wow, those were great. Great answer. And what a great analogy there. Thank you for sharing that. This question, Christina, is a little bit about the courseware. It's asking, normally in a student course, there are automated assessments, and they're asking, how does that work in this course?
Yes, so we have 3 different auto-graded assessments in this courseware. We have the quizzes, the chapter quizzes. We have strengthen your understanding, as well as check your understanding, or strengthen your skills and check your understanding. So there are 3 different auto-graded, and then we do have an assignment for every chapter. Some chapters have multiple assignments, so you can choose which one is more relevant to your course. And those ones are not auto-graded, but we do give criteria for how to grade them. I've been using them this semester in my course, and it's been going really well so far. So that's how we're doing the assessments.
Great. This is another question about the courseware, asking how much of agentic AI is taught in the course, because 2026 is the year of agents.
Yes. Oh, and it's such a hot topic. So we have an entire chapter dedicated to it. However, what I do want everyone with us today to keep in mind is this courseware is foundational, right? There's no way to build courseware that's going to cover everything related to this topic. So what we've done is we've tried to give a high level overview of as many of the topics that our students across discipline are going to need to be ready for immediately post-graduation. And so we're just giving the foundational information. They're going to take this courseware and they're going to expand on it on higher level, upper division courses, as well as their work experience. So really, this is informational and it's really high level, but it does give them enough to be dangerous, is what I want to say.
That's a good lead in for it, right? All right. Well, that concludes the questions that we've had today. So I want to thank France and Christina for joining us, and for all of you for joining us. As a reminder, I want to put up that link one more time. If you would like to request and receive free instructor access to this new GenAI Essentials courseware, go ahead and click on that and we'll have someone reach out so that you can have that. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today, and have a great weekend. Bye.